Is Anya, and we have some questions that we'd like to ask, if that was okay. Are you okay?
Still adjusting.
Let's give you a moment to adjust.
uh, I'm a 65-year-old politician from Dallas, Texas. And apparently right now I'm a woman. This is weird shit.
Hang in there, Ethan.
I'll do my best. I told her we don't really do things like this still over here in Texas. We just talk in our minds.
Okay.
I talk in my mind all the time to people and they respond back.
Okay.
But not this.
Not this.
No.
Well, if it's getting difficult around you, be sure to let us know, and we can help and call back the channel at any stage.
I'm a rancher. This is all new to me, and my degree of what you're calling spiritual awakening is milking a cow.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ethan.
I didn't get into politics until midway through my ranching career. And, I kept experiencing this shift. We had this major shift. We had a liberal politician come into the White House and make a lot of different shifts in agriculture. And it wasn't really working for my farmers, but a lot of things weren't working in farming. And this thing was making a whole shift over, and he happened to be my neighbor. We were already fighting over cows, and my cows getting in his pasture and his cows getting in my pasture. And we didn't make great neighbors, but then we became politicians together. I saved one of his cows. He started talking to me more about what he was trying to do and the changes he was trying to make, and why the way that we live off the land wasn't really working. And that year I had the biggest battle of my life with lung cancer, and I had to stop smoking. Nick taught me to meditate. He ran for presidency and won. So you can keep that in mind. Some goober named Nick made president one year and invited another goober named Ethan. And we became very oddball politicians who've never really had any experience before. But this is how New Earth goes. Everybody gets a hand at trying to change the world, or at least in my country. And our system was a new system, and many countries began to model it about midway through our presidency. Nick passed. He got voted in for 2 terms, and I was the vice president during those terms. And we became really, really good friends, and we made some big changes. And who would have thought that somebody like us would be the first people to say that we no longer need a 2-party system. We no longer need Democrat, Republican model, and you agree with guns and you don't, and you agree with abortion and you don't. And it's so much bigger than that now. And we woke up together, changing these modules that are outdated, these dinosaur political models that no longer work for our world anymore. And Canada hopped on board, and then the UK hopped on board, Ireland hopped on board, Australia hopped on board, and now we're working on Singapore. Russia, as usual, will not likely hop on board with anything that anyone does, and that still is a problem. But we all woke up together. Many political systems crumbled and many new ones were formed. Now people can say that they're involved in politics without being jerks. And most of the political systems are highly aware, awakened individuals who work with the land, not against it, work with the people, not against them. And no, I'm not just feeding you a bunch of political horse shit like most politicians do in your world right now. We want you to understand that there's hope for your systems, and your systems that aren't working or falling apart around you, beginning America and your presidency right now. we do want you to know that you have somebody coming up in next term. You won't get this same guy voted back in, and you'll get somebody that you loved in another term coming back up. So you can guess who I'm talking about. Some of you still hate him too. But we got some unfortunate bad news. He really needs to get more protection agents around him because it's not looking good, and we just want to give him that message. Not to put any fear out there, but he needs more protection than what he already has. And after that term, you get somebody that sort of the whole new. After this term and the next term in your country, the third term from now, you'll get someone voted in that changes the game, and that might be, my boy over here, Nick.
That is so cool.
And we're retired now, but we lasted for 2 terms.
Wow. That's really incredible. What type of changes? Can you tell us something about the changes that you put in?
We started with agriculture. We no longer have industrial. We started putting down new laws and regulations for the meat industry, as well as the meat packing industry, industrialized farming as a whole. When it comes to meat, and we started setting forth different regulations to make these companies operate completely differently, and it took some time. This was a 20-year change, and it took a lot because we're Texas farmers and trying to change old ways. And we've had people, practically yell at us, spit on us, call us names, try to kill us. We've had people try to steal our wives. We've had people threaten our kids. We've had people not want these systems to change, and you need to change it. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not, sorry to say it, we're not fancified, glorified fairy tale people either. We're not vegans. We are health conscious, but that took us a while too. And Nick almost having a heart attack before he stopped eating red meat every single day of his life. But we made some powerful changes in the 2-party system. Now you have an 8-party system, and anybody can get in if they want to start a new party. They have to be considered at a deeper level, not just starting locally, but starting statewide. So you don't start locally and then build into statewide systems and then build into a possible approval later. We flip the system around on its tail. So you have to be considered. Everybody has to be considered.
That's really cool.
We have 8 parties right now in our system.
8 parties.
I can explain them to you if anybody's interested.
I'd love to hear that.
We obviously still have Republicans, except they're very much more health conscious and land conscious than you are right now. I'm sorry to say, when I first started becoming interested in this, you weren't. We have Democrats, but you're more freedom conscious. I'm sorry to say that you weren't when we first started. You were in a completely different mindset. We had Nick's a libertarian, and so am I. We were the first party to be voted in as a libertarian, and we are proudly representing our freedoms, but we represent all rights, gay rights, trans rights, rights to marry who you want. We were the first to say, marijuana can be safe, but very regulated in all forms, not just in the form that you think is going to be best for you because you want to get high, but what's actually good for your bodies and minds. We were the first to instigate different legislature that approved peer-reviewed testing for marijuana as it comes through vapes, marijuana as it comes through the smoking and the rolled marijuana, or however you put it in the way you smoke it. And then we made different types of edibles that you don't just eat in the same way. It's not brownies or popcorn or whatever you guys, how it first started. We made safer forms of edibles. We made safer forms of vapes. We found out that smoking enrolled cigarettes with marijuana and enrolled anything with marijuana. We found out all that was more cancerous than anything else. And we created major legislature on marijuana becoming a medicine in hospitals. That's now a medicine in hospitals all around the world. We approved full ketamine use, full dose ketamine use safely. Can be regulated by telenurses in your homes. We approve psilocybin use. We're not what you think we are. At the microdose level and at the full level for cancer patients and people with extreme untreatable terminal illnesses can experience this in their homes under supervision of nurse practitioners. That's already starting that legislature, but it's just being turned down or pushed aside more. Now you have to go into an office, but it's about to go into telehealth when my boy comes on board. So those are some of the things that we've done so far. Like I said, we're retired now, but we're always involved in legislature and in giving. We work as approved counsel at this point in time, and congressional counsel sometimes. We have these other parties at this time. The Green parties have completely changed, but we have 4 Green parties, and each of them, some of them are more about making sure that animals that we need, animals and insects that we need to continue our species, are still here. So we almost had our first Green Party approval come into presidency. He was really tight with my boy Nick there, and we approved his legislature and pulled it in. We worked together. We agree that we need bees to live, and we put noise ordinances on every town.
Yeah.
So you can't. I'm sorry, Texas, but it's more important to keep bees alive than to amp your manhood up with an extra muffler, So we put decibel levels regulations in certain vehicles. We quieted down the vehicles. We have certain hybrids that work with nature, not against, and that with our upcoming geomagnetic storms, which we're having daily now, will not be put out of service because of any geomagnetic storm, which you're more than welcome to ask about. But we were experiencing a lot of climate change. It's a very real problem. Over the course of your time and mine, next 50, 55 years, you're going to experience the effects of this climate change. And we had to create vehicles that would last through a lot of geomagnetic change, pole shift, incremental changes. So we created new types of vehicles that don't break down every time we have, geomagnetic storms, which will be often.
Do you still have plane travel? Yeah.
Yeah, we do, but we have been, and this has taken a while. It took us about 20 years to approve a new type of plane that could handle the strength of geomagnetic storms, because it's more difficult, when you're in air at certain points in time. So depending upon how and when we travel, we have approved plane schedules. So we don't have as much planes in the air because we have what we call approved plane scheduling. And that means we have to abide by the scheduling of the storms with our climate change specialist, and we can't fly during certain times.
Okay.
But we do have planes that can handle it when they do fly if they were to run into those problems. And it took us about 20 years to build that type of plane and to get it approved.
Wow.
Through the federal aviation systems are very strict on what's safe and what isn't.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's good to know. Could I just ask you the changes that you made for the bees? Can you see that having an effect on the population still hanging in there of bees or getting better?
It wasn't that it got very much better. It just stopped, and then we're implementing new hives now. We have people who are paid by our governments to become beekeepers, and they're paid very well. They're given grants by your governments in a lot of countries: the UK, Canada, Switzerland, Sweden, America. Some of the Canary Islands are also joining the programs with this, and we're really, a lot of people are on board with these grant-based programs for implementing the bees. But we're struggling. We're still struggling to keep them alive because of the geomagnetic storms.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. Really cool. We have some questions here. I'll just start getting into them.
Mm-hmm.